We've all heard by now that evolution is a fact, I'm sure. And yet some dare to question evolution. Even though there are some striking similarities. We'll be looking at the genomes of 10 primates as follows: chimpanzee, gorilla, orangutan, gibbon, macaque, bush baby, marmoset, tarsier, mouse lemur, and of course, human. A lot of talk about the similarities of the opposable thumb. But what about the opposable big toe that chimpanzees have and humans do not? Very interesting difference and a striking one. Why would we have an opposable thumb but not an opposable big toe? As we go down the list, we're going to do some genetic comparisons, and these genetic comparisons are going to be used to determine whether or not all placental mammals actually have a common ancestor. And I think you're going to be surprised at what the actual evidence says. So, with that being said, let's get started. We're going to take a look at the EYA4 gene in the human genome on chromosome number 6, and we're going to be looking at the amino acid chain for the protein chain for this gene. There's 639 amino acids in the protein chain, and here we have on this line we're comparing human to pan troglodytes, and I just want to bring your attention to this particular line of amino acids, and here we have the same region for tarsier. And the reason I'm bringing this, the reason this is interesting is because when you go to look at gorilla, you see a 6 amino acid insertion in this same region, PGT-DLH, which is inserted into the this section here of the amino acid sequence for the protein. Now, what's interesting is when you look at the comparison between human and rabbit, you see in the same exact location a 6 amino acid insertion in rabbit that corresponds to the insertion in gorilla. In fact, the sequence for gorilla in this amino acid PGT-DLH, in rabbit it's PGIH-LH. So the probability of this insertion happening in two distantly related species raises the question, how did an insertion happen in the same exact location of 6 amino acids, which are 4 out of 6 identical in rabbit and gorilla? Why would it be inserted in gorillas and rabbits and yet not be conserved, that insertion not conserved in humans, chimpanzees, and tarsier? One evolutionary hypothesis which needs to be investigated is that, as opposed to this sequence being an insertion in the gorilla genome here, it's actually a deletion in the evolutionary line, which leads to humans and chimpanzees. In order to do that, in order to investigate that, what we're going to do is look at the other primates first, and then other mammals and other species. Here we have for Autolemur garneti, we see the PGT DLH as an insertion. So it's present in Autolemur. And here I've got a list here. So Autolemur is bush baby, and I've already gone through the list. Is not in human, it's not in chimp, it is in gorilla. The sequence is not in orangutan, it is in gibbon, which is Namascus. It's not in macaque, it is in bush baby, which we just looked at here. Marmoset, which is Calithrix, is not. It's not in marmoset, it's not in tarsier, and it's not in mouse lemur. And of course we can look here at these. Here's Namascus, macaque, or it's in it is in Damascus here. In macaque it's not. In pongo or orangutan it's not. In Microcebus murinus, which is mouse lemur, it's not in there either. In Calithrix jacus, not. Tarsier, not. Okay, so that's the primates. Here's the list. So the possibility that it's a deletion in the line that led to humans and chimp, and it was conserved in gorilla. If that's true, then orangutan, macaque, marmoset, tarsier, and mouse lemur are in the line from the primate split from gorilla and the line that led to human and chimp. So if human is most closely related to chimp and gorilla, and when they split off, the human chimp line suffered this deletion, then orangutan, macaque, marmoset, tarsier, and mouse lemur are in the same line. Or human, chimp, orangutan, macaque, marmoset, tarsier, and mouse lemur suffered the same exact deletion, which leads us back to the possibility of an insertion in a line that led to gorilla, gibbon, and bush baby, which seems kind of odd, that because this would put gorilla, gibbon, and bush baby in the same line, separate from these others. So I think a gene tree here is going to be terribly difficult, and certainly not one that's going to agree with anything that's already been established as factual. So let's look at some other species. Here we have mouse, which does not have the 6 amino acid sequence. How about squirrel? Does not. Panda does. Cow does have the insertion. Bunny rabbit, we already looked at, does have the insertion. Chicken does have the insertion. Dog does not. Platypus does not. Anole lizard does have the insertion. Latimeria does have the insertion. Xenopus tropicalis, which is a frog, does have the insertion. Turkey does not have the insertion. Hold on, that's kind of interesting because chicken does. So we have turkey does not have the insertion and chicken does have the insertion. That's peculiar. The last one here, Taniopegia, does have the insertion. And what is that? Zebrafinch does have the insertion. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay. Right here for zebrafinch. Alright, so now we've looked at both the primate line and the other species, and some other species. Kind of a good mix in there. I had a lizard, a few birds. And what I've done here is I've made a list of the non-primate species. So, in conclusion, we have to consider the possibility that these species do not have a common ancestor, because the differences between those that have the insertion and those that do not have the insertion defies evolutionary explanation.